This is my April TBR. So you just saw me do my Jenga game. So first, I'll go through what I ended up deciding for those prompts. And I went through a couple of different iterations for those, but this is what I have landed on. So I picked a classic, so I'm gonna read, it's actually a reread for me, but I'm gonna reread The Blue Castle by L.M. Montgomery. This is one of my favorite books and I like to reread it from time to time. So I'm really looking forward to rereading this one, and I'm considering it a classic. I don't know if you would consider it a classic, but I am considering this a classic, and I am going to reread it because this is a great time of year to read this book. So that's my classic. And then this one I chose, it's also a classic, it's also a reread. I did read this for the very first time last year, but it's also short stories, and I want to reread this one. So this is The Country of the Pointed Firs. It has, some parts of it have stuck with me very strongly since my first read of this last year for my 200 Women project, and I would really enjoy rereading this, and it feels like a good time of year to reread it. So this is the classic that I chose for that Jenga tile. And then I picked history twice, so I have two history books here that I will share with you. The first one I picked is really short, and it's a book that I've had on my shelf for a really long time. It's called Hearts West, True Stories of Mail Order Brides on the Frontier by Chris Innes. So I'm looking forward to reading through that one. And then I picked The Unredeemed Captive, which I had kind of wanted to get to last month, but if you've seen my wrap up, you know I didn't read a lot of nonfiction, and I didn't have a lot of extra time for reading things like this. So I'm wanting to read The Unredeemed Captive, which is a book that I was given for Christmas many years ago. And I am finally gonna get around to reading it. Excited to dig into that one. I picked the creativity title, and so I'm gonna read this one that I've had on my shelf for a really long time and have never read. It's called The Memoir Project, a thoroughly non-standardized text for writing and life. So I find writing to be a very creative process, so I'm gonna count this for the creativity tile, and I'm gonna read this one. Finally. I think I've had that with me since like 2010. I picked YA, so I'm gonna read Hot British Boyfriend by Christy Boyce. How far would you go for love? And then I picked cookbook. I have tons of cookbooks. I actually really enjoy reading cookbooks, but I'm gonna go with the Little House cookbook for this one. I got this for myself for my birthday at the end of last year, and I'm excited to be able to sit down and spend some time with it. And maybe this month I'll do some extra videos and I will film myself cooking a few of these things. We'll see how they turn out. So we've got the Little House cookbook. And that is all the books for my Jenga tile pulling. I have to tell you, that last one that I decided to pull was an extra one, and I thought it was gonna fall over. I really did. And there was no intent in my mind to pull after that because it was a very close call. It was the first time in the Jenga game where I was like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna lose all the books on my stack. I also pulled magazine twice. The universe really wanted me to pick a magazine, but I read one last month and I'm not feeling it for April. So I used 2 of my 3 passes and got out of having to read another magazine, which is information in and of itself. Like, this is why I have magazines that are unread, because I mood read magazines and I'm just not in the mood. Okay, so now I'll go through my stack of required reading. First, it's not arrived yet, but I've ordered it. There's this book here, The Lost Apothecary, which is the choice for my In Real Life book club this month in April. So I'm excited to read that one. And then it's time to pick up the next book in the Barchester Chronicles. I didn't read one last month, but it's time for Dr. Thorne. And I could only find the Pan Macmillan classic version, and I am not sad about that at all. I love this little book. Of course I have the cover, the pretty cover with the picture on it, but I really prefer this one. Oh my goodness, I love this one so much. So it's just, this is my first one of these, and I've seen them on BookTube so often, and I've thought, oh, those are so cute, but would I be able to read such tiny writing? And you know what? Yes, absolutely. And I think that this might be my new obsession. It's so sweet and cute, and I love it so much, and it's the perfect color for spring. Anyway, if anybody can remember what book this is, kudos to you. It is Anthony Trollope's Dr. Thorne. It is the third book in the Barchester Chronicles series. I'm right on track for it. We have 2 months to read it, April and May. I'm gonna read it in April and then not read one in May, just like I did with February, March. I have seen the Amazon Prime miniseries for Dr. Thorne, so I'm familiar with the story, but full disclosure, I watched the entire thing on an airplane trip from France back to the States a couple of years ago during a summer holiday. So I probably don't remember very much about that series, but some. And B, I think reading it will be a totally different experience. I am a little bit hesitant about Trollope. Had such a terrible response to The Warden. Such a fun response to Barchester Towers. So Dr. Thorne, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. Then my Dickens book for the month is Barnaby Rudge, which is historical fiction. So it's even like if I were to read it in 1840s London as it's being serialized, it is historical fiction to me as an 1840s Londoner. It's apparently based on a true story, Barnaby Rudge. Sorry, my British friends, if you think I should know who this person is, I don't. But I think that it is a historical figure, and Dickens has fictionalized his life. I've never seen any film adaptations of this. I know nothing about the story except that apparently it is something about a revolution of some kind, and that I believe no popery. No popery, it says on his hat. I'm reading his hat. I'm looking at clues in my picture. So it's obviously some kind of religious situation, Church of England versus Catholics, not sure. So I am excited to read about this one and to find out. Historical fiction is absolutely my favorite thing to read, so I'm curious to see what Dickens will do with it. For the Read Harder Challenge for the month, I'm going to read The Prince and the Dressmaker. I don't remember the category that this fits, but I know it fits a category and I picked it at the beginning of the year, so I'm gonna read this one. It is a YA graphic novel. And then I am going to read I Wanna Be Where You Are by Christina Forrest, and this is to fulfill the category of a person of color, a book that centers a person of color but not their pain. So excited to read this one. And then I'm reading an extra one. I've already read 2 books for the anti-racist book, but I'm gonna read this one as well. Will be my 3rd, and I actually started this yesterday and it's phenomenal already. It's Rising Out of Hatred, The Awakening of a Former White Nationalist, Eli Saslow. And I had no idea, but a lot of the beginning of this book takes place in Sarasota, and I used to live in Bradenton right next to Sarasota, so that's kind of fun. And I like when I get to revisit places I love in book format. So reading that one. And those are all the books that I have to read this month. But then I am me. And so, hi, I'm me. And so I have a ton of other books that I want to get to. So there are so many great books that I have read that I have the next book to, that I'm kind of really wanting to get to. So first I'm going to show you those. I am hoping to get to the next book in the Drurycliff Grange series, which I read the first book of last month, and then immediately ordered the second book. There are only 2 books right now. So I'm excited to read this one. I love the red spine. The other one has a white spine. So this is The Haunting of Drurycliff Grange School by Kim Newman. I am I loved the weirdness of the first book, so I'm really excited to read this one, and I know that I don't want to wait. I want to ride that momentum, so I'm going to pick this one up right away. And then in November of last year, I made a TBR pile and then completely abandoned it because I decided that I wanted to read Christmas-themed books, or holiday-themed books, winter-themed books. And so I had started this one and read most of it and was really into it, but decided to just wait a month. I'll just wait a month. And now it's April. So I want to pick this one up, start it over from the beginning and finish it so that I can read the third one so that I'm ready for when the fourth one comes out later this year. And that is The Missing of Claire de Lune. And I'm really loving this one. I remember loving this one in November because I was like, okay, so we've done so much world building in that first one, which I also really loved. But this one, we dive into the story much more quickly. And I'm so excited to see what happens with Ophelia and Thorne. I am totally into this series and don't want to wait anymore. I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to read this one. I have the third one. I need to read it as well. And then the fourth one is pre-ordered and it's coming to me and I can't wait to just immerse myself in the rest of the series. So if you haven't read these, I love these. Also, how perfect is the coloring for April? It's so perfect. Then I want to pick up the next one in the Throne of Glass series. That's The Crown of Midnight. And I have this one and I picked it up last night and read the first chapter and I was like, oh yeah, maybe I do actually really like Sarah Maas's writing. I don't know. There's part of me that's like, it's Sarah Maas. She's so incredibly popular. You can't like her because she's so popular, which is kind of silly. I do kind of like her. I think that this series is very YA, but it might be like my in to her other series. I have read A Court of Thorns and Roses. Is that one? That's the first one in that series. And it was not for me, but I think that maybe Crescent City might be. So maybe I might pick up that one after I read this one, or maybe I'll just want to pick up the third book in Throne of Glass. I don't know, but I know my Sarah J. Maas journey is just beginning. I can't believe I'm jumping on that train. I never jump on those trains, but I am. And then I have Shatter, which is the second book. It's the companion book to Glitter, which I read last year. Glitter is about the future of Versailles, and I really, really, really loved it. It's a YA fantasy book, and I have the second one here, Shatter, which I would like to read because Glitter hasn't left me yet, and I have it sitting on my shelf, burning a hole in my shelf. Last month, I read A Lisa Jewell and loved it so much. I read The Family Upstairs, and I realized that on my shelf, I already have The Girls in the Garden, and I've had it for years, and I've never read it, and it's by Lisa Jewell, so I'm reading this one. And then last month, I read the first book in the Jackson Brodie series by Kate Atkinson. That was Case Histories, and so I saw that Book Outlet had the whole rest of the series for incredibly inexpensive on sale. And so I picked all of those up and they arrived. So I've started already the second book, which is One Good Turn, and I'm loving it so far. I love Kate Atkinson and I love this series. So then I'm itching, as always, to read an Irish country book. So I'm reading the next one in the series. I already have this one on my shelf. So I just pulling it off my shelf. All of these are books I already have on my shelf. I'm just pulling them off and I'm so excited to get through them and to get them checked off and to know, am I keeping them or not? However, a lot of these, like I said, they're all like the next books. So most of these are keepers because I wouldn't have them if I didn't already love this series that they're in. So this is An Irish Country Courtship by Patrick Taylor. Not last month, but the month before, I read the book before this, which was An Irish Country Girl, and I think it's my favorite in the series. So I'm excited to read this one. This one picks back up with the doctors and let's see, the last one kind of broke off and went a different direction and gave us backstory on Kinky Kincaid. Name is so hard to say. Kinky Kincaid. And now we're back in the present day, which is historical fiction for this series, but we're back in their present day, and we're moving forward with the two doctors, Dr. Barry Laverty in Ballybuckle Bowl. And then I just realized that this was a series and got super excited. So a couple of years ago, I listened to a book from my library called 1000 White Women, I think that's what it was called. And it was a fictionalized story about women that were chosen by the government to go and marry Native Americans on the plains in the 1800s. And it was their story. It was the story of Molly Dodd, and told as if it were journals. And Molly Dodd's journals. And of course, this is a story about, it's a story that is close to my heart because of my study of and time in Tibet, where I have seen and learned about how one civilization can choose to overtake another civilization by intermarrying, right? And so that's what we have in this. We have our white government deciding that they will end Native American culture by introducing white wives into their society. And it backfires, and that's what I love about it. The women become fierce members of these tribes. And I just absolutely loved this book. There are some problems, of course. Of course, there are some problems. I'm not saying that it's not problematic in some areas, but overall, I really, really adored the book. And I just realized that it's a series and that the new book is coming out in April. And there's 3 of them so far. So I read 1000 White Women, and then I picked up The Vengeance of Mothers, and I've already started reading it, and it's that same voice. I love it so much. It's different journals, though. It's the journals of Margaret Kelly and Molly McGill, who we meet in 1000 White Women, but 1000 White Women is the journal of Molly Dodd. So now we're reading the journals of Margaret Kelly and Molly McGill, and The Vengeance of Mothers. It's awesome. I don't want to tell you why they have vengeance, because that would ruin some things that happen in the first book. But if you like Westerns and you like cultural empowerment and you like feminism, and you like historical fiction, then these might be the books for you. There's just really engaging and really readable. So I'm reading this, and that is exciting. Those are all my next books that I want to get to right now. I have other next books, like I'd like to read Circe again. I'd like to read Enemy Women, which is another book by the author of News of the World, but I'm not going to pick those up right now. There are others, but I'm not going to pick them up right now. Those are the ones that are like really feeling pressing to me. I want to continue those stories, and I want to continue them yesterday. But then I've also got 2 more stacks. Now I'm considering these 2 stacks to be primarily not TBR, but possibility piles. And that's another train. I'm not giving up TBRs. TBRs work for me. They work really, really well. They keep me on track, and I get through so many books by following a TBR and then supplementing that TBR. This time I have created this possibility pile, which are supplementary books that I would like to get to, that I will most likely get to, but I'm not officially making them TBR, so that I feel it's okay if I don't get to them. So the first book on that possibility pile is The Witch of I by Catherine Nuremberger. These are essays. And this book just arrived for me last month. I had pre-ordered it, and I had forgotten that I pre-ordered it. I really like to read about witch trials. And I like to think about what witch trials actually are. And when I'm saying witch trials, I'm not talking about like the witch hunt, of current political screaming, or of Cold War screaming or of any of that. I'm talking about actual witch trials in which women and occasionally men were set aside because they were different, or they had something that other members in society wanted, or because they were inconvenient members of society, and how they are focused targets for attack by more well-established and more well-established and readily acceptable members of a society. I really like to read about that. And so this is a series of essays about that with current day cultural application. So I'm excited to read this. And I want to get to it this month, but I didn't put it on my official TBR because it's a little dark and I'm looking at happier, brighter books. I'm just feeling it. I'm feeling it. Last month was March, and it was the end of winter, the beginning of spring, and it was dark and rainy and long, and I read mysteries predominantly. So I don't know. I want to read this. I really do, but I also am craving brighter things. Another book that falls into that exact same category of like wanting to read it, but also wanting to read brighter things is The Bristol House by Beverly Swirling. This is a book that I picked up. You can see I've already started reading it. This is a book that I picked up for my birthday haul at the end of last year, and it is a haunted house story. And I really loved reading a haunted house book last month called A Family Plot. And so I wanted another one like that, but this isn't like that. So I think what I'm really doing is waiting for my next Sherry Priest book, who is the author of The Family Plot. This is a ghost story book. It's pretty intellectual, which sounds kind of weird, but it is pretty intellectual. It's also fun fiction, but it's also dark and, like I said, intellectual. So I don't know, I'm not loving the tone of it. It's a little confusing, the tone. But that might only be because what I really want is more the family plot. So that's not fair to judge the book that way. So I have this one and I have started reading it. I probably will finish it, complete reading it, but I've also allowed myself to leave it for a little bit just in case I do decide that what it is about the book that's not sitting well with me is that it's not the family plot, because that's not fair. Then I've also got The Grammarians by Catherine Sheen. And you can see I've already started this one as well. And this is going to be a quick read. This is a weird little book. And it's dark. And I'm not sure that I want to read it right now, but I have started it. So I'm putting it on my possibility pile of a book that I might finish this month. And then I just received this one in the mail. This was a pre-order. This is The Lost Village. There's a bookmark in it, but I haven't started reading it. That bookmark is just there. This arrived just a couple of days ago. It's called The Lost Village. It is translated from the Swedish by Alexandra Fleming, but it is by Camilla Sten. And it is, this is why I got it. I am a sucker for this. It says The Blair Witch Project meets Midsommar in this brilliantly disturbing thriller. It's about a documentary filmmaker who, well, okay, so maybe I don't know what this is about entirely. So let me just read this. So it says, documentary filmmaker Alice Lindstedt has been obsessed with the vanishing residents of an old mining town dubbed the Lost Village since she was a little girl. In 1959, her grandmother's entire family disappeared in the mysterious tragedy, and ever since the unanswered questions surrounding the only two people who were left, a woman stoned to death in the town center and an abandoned newborn, have plagued her. She's gathered a small crew of friends in the remote village to make a film about what really happened, but there will be no turning back. Not long after they've set up camp, strange things begin to happen. Equipment is destroyed, people go missing. As doubt breeds fear and their very minds begin to crack, one thing becomes startlingly clear to Alice. They are not alone. They're looking for the truth, but what if it finds them first? So many things in this book that I absolutely love and adore. so it's on my possibility pile. Again, it falls into that category of it's so dark, I want bright and shiny and light, but also, ooh, such a great mystery. So it's on my possibilities. And then I have a book of all those happy, shiny feelings that I want to read, a stack of all those happy, shiny feelings. So first we've got Death by Darjeeling. I really want to read this series. I own a ton of them. I've tried a million times and I always get distracted. But I think that right now is the time. The Language of Flowers. I received this as a gift, as a Galentine's gift, like 3 or 4 years ago, and I still haven't read it yet. Seems like a great time. The Secrets of Maple Syrup Farm by Rebecca Raisin. I love Rebecca Raisin so much. I got this for Christmas last year. Still haven't read it yet. Seems like a good time. The Real Katie Lavender, or Lavender, not sure how to say that, by Erica James. I started reading this one and didn't finish it. Absolutely don't know why. It was great. It was enthralling. Feels like a great time to finish it. The Loveliest Chocolate Shop in Paris by Jenny Colgan. I picked this up as a reward to myself when I was in Houston and I had just finished a really hard week. Started reading it, got to page 14 and didn't continue. Feels like a good time to finish it. The Jane Austen Society, which I got for myself last year and really want to read and don't know why I haven't picked it up yet. Spring vibes all over this thing. Would really like to read it. Seems like a good time to pick it up. Again, none of those are on my actual TBR. They are all just possibilities. I'm going to have them sitting right next to me so that in that moment where I'm like, I'm in between TBR books or I've finished my TBR, what do I do now? I will reach for one of those dark books or one of those light books. And yeah, that's my plan for the month. What are you planning on reading this month? Are you a mood reader? Do TBRs work for you? Have you read any of these books? Do you feel the same way that I feel about some of them? Talk to me about these books. Talk to me about what you're excited to read. And yeah, bye.